Katerina couldn't remember what her hands used to look like. Before they became bone. Before the fingers turned to sticks wrapped in yellowed skin. Before all 10 fingernails disappeared, not torn off, just gone, absorbed back into flesh that had nothing left to give. 5 feet 6 inches tall, 87 pounds. Body mass index, 14. At 19 years old, Katerina Vogel's body looked like it belonged to a woman of 70. Below 16 meant danger. Below 14 meant most people didn't survive. She was at 14, and falling. The train car smelled like death. Not the kind that comes quickly, the slow kind. The kind that takes 12 days of darkness and the gradual realization that the world had decided to forget you existed. 73 women had been loaded into this boxcar at Wiesbaden station on April 18, 1945. Factory workers, nurses, clerks who'd typed the wrong papers at the wrong moment. Now they were cargo. Forgotten cargo. Wiesbaden station, April 18, 1945, 05:47. Katerina stood in a line of women that stretched 50 meters down the platform. Silence was safer. Crying meant you still had hope, and hope in April 1945 was dangerous. The war was ending. You could smell it. Ash from burning documents, smoke from retreating divisions, the particular stench of an empire collapsing. She clutched a canvas bag. Inside, 1 change of clothes, a photograph of her mother, 42 Reichsmarks, 4 years of savings from the munitions factory. Her mother had died 3 weeks ago. Tuberculosis. The last thing she'd said, "Live, Katerina. However hard it gets, promise me you'll live." Katerina had promised. A woman with grey hair moved down the line, checking each person with efficient movements. Dr. Margareta Klein, 55 years old, 30 years as a military nurse. She'd treated over 300 wounded soldiers. She knew what death looked like. And she knew these women were being sent somewhere. Death would be waiting. "Bring water if you have it," Dr. Margareta said quietly, "and don't believe what they tell you." Further down, a woman argued with a guard, tall, muscular, grease under her fingernails. Liesel Hoffmann, 28, a mechanic who'd spent the war repairing tanks. "I worked 4 years for the Reich," Liesel said sharply. 4 years building your equipment." The guard shoved her, hard. Liesel stumbled but didn't fall. Her jaw set. Fight back and die here, or save the fight for later. She chose later. Near the platform's end, a girl searched faces in the crowd. 16 years old, Eva, looking for her sister who'd promised to meet her here, the sister who never came. Eva's parents had died in the Dresden bombing, her brother on the Eastern Front. Her sister was all she had left. Katerina watched the girl's face crumple, then harden. The exact moment hope turned to ash. At 6:15 they began loading. Not passenger cars, freight cars. The kind for cargo, for livestock, for things that didn't need dignity. The first car held 40 women, then 50, then 60. When they reached 70, the guards kept pushing. Katerina was number 71. She pressed against the wall as 2 more were shoved inside. Dr. Margaret tried to organize. "Make space in the corners. The sick and elderly should sit. We share what we have. 2 loaves of bread per person. 1 water canteen for every 10 women. The rations of people who weren't expected to need them long." Eva ended up next to Katerina. The girl was shaking. Katerina put an arm around her shoulders. "We'll be okay," she whispered. The lie tasted like metal. At 6:45, Hauptmann Weber appeared at the door. 42 years old, career military, a man who'd followed orders his entire life. He looked at the 73 women. His expression was blank. Not cruel, not kind. Empty. "You're being relocated to a resettlement camp. The journey will take 3 days. Liesel spat on the floor. "Liar." Weber didn't react. He stepped back. The door slammed shut. The lock clicked. Darkness. Day 1, April 18th. The train started moving at 7:03. 73 women in 40 square meters. Less than 1 square meter per person. You couldn't lie down, could barely sit. Dr. Margareta's voice cut through the chaos. Listen, we survive by organizing. Rules keep us human. She laid out the system. Right corner for the sick. Center for those still fighting. Left corner, no one said it but everyone understood, was where you went when you'd given up. Katerina stayed in the center. Moving to that left corner meant surrender, and she'd promised her mother she would live. By noon, bread was rationed. 2 loaves per person, 3 days, if they were careful, if the journey was only 3 days, if they were telling the truth. Katerina ate slowly. Next to her, Eva barely touched hers. "I'm not hungry," the girl whispered. That was a lie. But sometimes not eating was the only control you had left. Through gaps in the wooden slats, Katerina caught glimpses of Germany. Ruined buildings, burned fields, towns like skeletons. Around hour 6, she noticed something rolling on the floor. A small glass jar, empty. She picked it up. Glass could hold water, could be useful. She slipped it into her pocket. Small acts of preparation. That's how you survived. As the sun set, temperature dropped. April nights were cold. No insulation, no heat, just bodies pressed together. Eva curled against Katerina's side, shivering. "Tell me something from before." "I wanted to teach literature," Katerina said. "My favorite book was Goethe's Faust, about a man who trades his soul for knowledge. But in the end, the deal cost him everything." "Did he get his soul back?" Eva asked. Katerina couldn't remember, and that terrified her more than the locked door. She was already forgetting who she used to be. Day 2, April 19. The train stopped at 6 in the morning. Everyone held their breath. Maybe the doors would open. Maybe this nightmare would end. Hours passed. The doors stayed locked. No explanation, no food, no water. Temperature climbed. Spring sun beating on metal. No ventilation. 73 women breathing the same air until it felt like drowning. Liesel crawled to the gaps, peering out. "We're on a siding. There's a village 200 meters away." "Can you see guards?" Dr. Margaret asked. Long silence. "No, I don't see anyone." No guards meant they weren't valuable enough to watch. They'd become waste. By midday, water ran low. 3 capfuls each. That was all. Katerina's lips cracked. Her tongue felt thick, but she gave her portion to Eva. The train started moving again at 4. No explanation for the 6-hour stop. That night, a woman in the back corner stopped breathing. They moved her body to the left corner and tried not to think about joining her. Day 3, April 20. The bread ran out. Dr. Margareta had rationed carefully, but mathematics didn't care. 73 women, 2 loaves each, 3 days. The food was gone, and the train kept moving. Katerina's stomach had stopped hurting. That's what starvation does. First it screams, then it goes quiet because there's nothing left to burn. Her body was eating itself. Muscle first, then fat, then the proteins that kept your heart beating. Eva had stopped talking, just stared at the gaps, watching Germany slide past. Liesel was the only one still fighting. She'd found a piece of metal and was working it loose, trying to create a tool. That afternoon they heard voices. German soldiers. The train was passing through a station. Liesel pressed her face to the gap. "There are soldiers!" She pounded on the wood. "Hier! Wir sind hier! Here! We're here!" Other women joined, banging, screaming, pleading. For 5 minutes, 73 starving women made as much noise as they could. The train rolled past without slowing. No one came. That's when Katerina understood. They weren't prisoners being transported. They were problems being disposed of. Loose ends in a collapsing regime. This train wasn't going anywhere. It was just going until they all stopped. Day 4, April 21. The train stopped moving. Not at a station, just stopped. Middle of nowhere. Trees visible through gaps. Wind, but no human voices. They waited for doors to open. Hours passed. Nothing. Dr. Margareta checked the sick corner. 3 more women had died overnight. 73 had become 70. Katerina had stopped sweating. Bad sign. Her body had no water left to give. Skin paper-thin, stretched over bones, pushing outward. Her weight, 92 pounds. When had the fingernails disappeared? Day 2? 3? Now they were just gone. Reabsorbed. Eva moved toward the left corner. Not all the way, just closer. Katerina crawled over. Don't go there yet. I'm tired. I know. I can't remember my sister's face. Something cracked inside Katerina's chest. Tell me her name. Anna. Tell me something about Anna. Long silence. Then, she used to braid my hair every morning. She said I looked like a princess. You are a princess, Katerina lied. Eva smiled, just a little, just enough to break Katerina's heart. That night, Liesl managed to pry loose the metal piece, 15 centimeters long, jagged. She crawled to the wall and started digging. Scrape, 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 proof that someone was still fighting. You won't break through, Dr. Margareta said. The wood's too thick. I know, Liesl said, but sitting still feels like dying. Day 5, April 22. Katerina woke to silence. Real silence. She counted. 64 women left. 9 died in the night. The smell was unbearable. Human waste, decomposition, bodies shutting down. Weight dropped to maybe 87 pounds now. Body mass index 14, in the danger zone. Dr. Margareta tried to maintain order, but even her voice had gone hoarse. Her hands shook, distributing the last drops of water. Around noon, Liesl made a sound. She'd carved a hole. Small, 10 centimeters, but enough to see through clearly. Through the gap, trees, a dirt road, and 300 meters away, a village. Smoke from chimneys. Signs of life. The world was still out there, still functioning, while they died in darkness. Liesl started screaming. Hilfe! Bitte! Help! Please! They screamed for an hour. No one came. People knew they were there. The villagers had to know. You couldn't park a train full of dying women without knowing. They knew. They just didn't care. Or cared. But fear was stronger than compassion. The world had decided to walk past them. Liesl stopped screaming, slumped against the wall, staring at her hands, fingernails ripped out during digging, blood dried black. They saw us, she whispered. I made eye contact with a man. He looked right at me. Then he looked away and kept walking. That was the moment hope shattered. When you realize the world isn't divided into good and bad people. It's divided into people who stop and people who keep walking. And most people keep walking. Day 6, April 23. The fight stopped. Not because of peace, because fighting takes energy they didn't have. Liesl sat motionless. Dr. Margareta had stopped organizing. Eva had moved all the way to the left corner. Let me go, Eva whispered. Please, I'm so tired. Katerina wanted to argue, but looking at her own body, she realized she didn't have strength to save anyone. That afternoon, footsteps outside. Everyone who could move turned toward the door. The footsteps came closer, stopped right outside. A pause. The scrape of something being set down. The footsteps retreated. Liesl crawled to the hole. On the ground, just visible, were 3 loaves of bread. Someone had left them. For 10 minutes, no one moved. Trap? Poison? Finally, Liesl reached through. Her arm barely fit. She stretched until she dragged one loaf inside. She tore it open, smelled it, took a tiny bite. It's real. They divided it. 73 had become 58. 3 loaves. Not enough. Never enough. But it was something. Proof that somewhere, someone had chosen to stop. Katerina ate slowly. The bread tasted like dust and miracles. Outside, Frau Müller walked home. She'd heard the sounds that had faded from screams to whispers to silence over 6 days. She couldn't open the doors, couldn't free them, couldn't even report it without risking her family. But she could bring bread. Inside, Katerina held the bread Eva couldn't eat. She looked at the glass jar in her pocket, still empty, still useless. But she kept it, because holding on to something meant you still believed in later. Day 6 ended in darkness. 58 women breathing, 9 bodies in the corner. Katerina pressed her face against the gap, trying to breathe air that didn't smell like death. She wrote something on the wall with charcoal, letters shaky, barely legible. Katerina Vogel, 19, Wiesbaden. I was here. If they found the bodies, at least someone would know her name.
Day 7, April 24th.
Katerina woke to a sound she'd never heard before. Silence. Complete silence. Dr. Margareta Klein had stopped talking. For 6 days, the older woman had been their anchor, organizing, rationing, maintaining rules that kept them human. Now she sat in her corner, knees to chest, eyes open but empty, staring at nothing. Katerina crawled over. Moving took forever. Dr. Klein? No response. She touched the woman's shoulder, flesh like paper over bone. Dr. Margareta had been 140 pounds when she boarded, now maybe 95. It wasn't starvation that broke her, it was realization. Everything she'd done, every rule, every ration, every attempt at order, had been meaningless. They were going to die anyway. She'd stopped talking because there was nothing left to say. Katerina felt fear grip her throat. If Dr. Margareta could break, anyone could. She looked around. 58 had become 49 overnight. 9 more bodies.
That's when she heard it. A voice.
Young, cracked, barely there. Eva was singing. Guten Abend, gute Nacht, mit Rosen bedacht. Brahms' lullaby. The song German mothers sang to German children. A song about safety, love, tomorrow. The song was a lie now. Tomorrow wasn't promised. But Eva sang anyway. Other voices joined, maybe 5, maybe 6. Women who still had breath. Katerina opened her mouth. Her throat hurt. But she sang. Not because she believed they'd be rescued, but because Eva, 16, orphaned, dying, had found courage to offer something beautiful into darkness. And refusing that gift felt like greater surrender than death. They sang for 3 minutes. Then voices faded, energy spent. But in those 3 minutes, something shifted. Women straightened. The ones in the sick corner opened their eyes. Even Dr. Marguerite turned her head toward the sound. Music did what rules couldn't. It reminded them they were human.
Katerina crawled back to Eva, wrapped skeletal arms around the girl.
"Thank you." Eva didn't respond. She'd fallen unconscious, or into that grey space between living and dying. Katerina held her anyway, because letting go meant accepting she was lost.
50 kilometers north, same morning.
Corporal Nathaniel Greaves couldn't shake the feeling. 23 years old, born in Boston, son of a factory foreman and schoolteacher, enlisted in 1943 because staying home felt like cowardice. 14 months in Europe now, seen combat in France, watched friends die, learned war wasn't heroic, it was chaos and blood and being afraid every day. But the war was ending. Germany collapsing, retreating, burning bridges, American forces pushing east, mopping up resistance, waiting for surrender. Nathaniel's unit, 3rd Battalion Medical Support, was securing Oberkirch sector. Small village, no strategic value, just farmers and old people. Orders, patrol, document, move on. But something felt wrong. He'd been assigned morning patrol with Private Davies, a kid from Ohio who never stopped talking. They walked the perimeter. That's when Nathaniel heard it, or thought he heard it, a sound, faint, distant, like wind through trees, but wrong.
Too rhythmic.
"You hear that?" he asked Davis. The kid listened. "Hear what?" "That sound," Davies shook his head. Just wind. Let's finish and get back. But Nathaniel couldn't let it go. He walked toward the sound. Davies followed, complaining. They came to railroad tracks, abandoned siding branching off the main line. And sitting there, 200 meters away, were 4 boxcars. Just sitting. No engine, no guards, no activity. When did those get here? Nathaniel asked. Davies shrugged. Who knows? Probably abandoned when Germans retreated. Should we check it? Why? Orders are patrol the village, not treasure hunt. Davies was right. The boxcars weren't their mission, but that feeling wouldn't leave. I'm taking a closer look, Nathaniel said. Davies sighed but followed. That's what soldiers did. They approached carefully, weapons ready. You never knew. Booby traps, deserters, ambush. But as they got closer, Nathaniel smelled something. Sweet, sick,
Familiar. Death. He'd smelled it enough to recognize it immediately. The stench of human bodies decomposing. Jesus, Davies breathed. What is that? Nathaniel walked to the first boxcar. Door locked from outside. He moved to the second. Same. Third. Locked. 4th car. He was about to turn away when he heard it again. That sound. Breathing. Weak, shallow, barely there, but breathing. Someone's alive in there, he said. Davies stepped back. Could be a trap. Nathaniel moved closer, found a gap between slats, put his eye to the opening. Darkness inside. But as his vision adjusted, he saw shapes, bodies, then movement. Then, God help him, he saw an eye, human eye, staring back. A woman's eye. Nathaniel jerked back, heart hammering. There are people in there. Women. Davies looked through. His face went white. Holy Mary. Inside, Katerina had crawled to Liesel's carved hole when she heard voices. English voices. Hallucinations had started day 8. This had to be another. But then a face appeared at the gap. Young, male, terrified, an American soldier. Katerina tried to speak. Her voice rasped, barely human. Help! Bitter! Help! The face disappeared. For a moment she thought that was it, the hallucination ending. Then she heard running footsteps, moving away. They were leaving. The Americans had seen them and were leaving. Katerina felt something break inside. Not her body, that was already broken. Something deeper, the last fragment of hope. She slumped against the wall, tears running down hollow cheeks. Behind her, Liesel crawled to the hole. What happened? Americans, Katerina whispered. They saw us. They left. Liesel's face went blank. The world had walked past them again.
But Nathaniel Greaves hadn't left. He was running back toward command post. Davis was behind him, shouting, "Greaves, we're not authorized." "I don't care about authorized." He burst into the converted farmhouse. 3 officers looked up from a map table. Sergeant Patrick Dalton, 35, Career Army. "Greaves, what's your status?" "Sir, there's a train, boxcars, women inside, locked in. They're dying." Dalton's expression didn't change. "Women? German women?" "They're human beings locked in boxcars." The third man stood, Captain Elliot Brennan, 42 years old, medical officer. 20 years learning to save lives, 2 years learning how many he couldn't save. He'd seen concentration camps, seen what humans could do to other humans. "How many?" Brennan asked, voice calm, clinical, but eyes sharp. "I don't know. At least 1, maybe more. The smell. Sir, some are already dead." Dalton shook his head. "Not our problem. Orders are secure the village and move on." "They're dying, Sergeant." "And how many Americans died liberating this country?" Dalton's voice was hard, worn down by war. "We have our orders." Nathaniel looked at Brennan. The captain studied a map, face unreadable. "Captain," Nathaniel said quietly, "please." Long moment. Then Brennan spoke, voice carrying weight of every triage decision he'd ever made. "Geneva Convention, 1929, Article 7. All prisoners shall be treated humanely. Article 12 states medical care shall be provided without distinction of nationality." He looked at Dalton. "This isn't about authorization. This is our obligation under international law. We don't know if they're prisoners. We know they're human beings in distress. That's enough." Brennan grabbed his field kit, looked at Nathaniel. "Show me." Day 8, April 25th. Inside the boxcar, time had stopped meaning anything. Katerina drifted in and out, her body shutting down in stages. 87 pounds. BMI 13.8. She was entering the final stage, the stage where recovery became nearly impossible. Eva had stopped breathing during the night. Katerina held the girl until her chest went still, until warmth left her skin. She couldn't cry. Dehydration had stolen even that. Liesel gently pulled her away, moved Eva's body to join the others. 49 had become 47. Dr. Margareta still hadn't spoken, but she'd crawled to the sick corner, checking pulses, closing eyelids, maintaining dignity when dignity seemed pointless. That afternoon, Katerina heard vehicles, multiple vehicles, English voices. She didn't let herself hope. Hope was dangerous. But Liesel crawled to the hole, looked out, her face changed. "They came back," she whispered. "The Americans came back." Outside, Captain Brennan examined the first boxcar. German military padlock. Heavy. "We need tools," he said. "Bolt cutters. Nathaniel, back to base." "Sir, protocol? Documentation?" "Documentation can wait. These women can't." Brennan moved to the second car, put his hand against wood. "Can you hear me?" he called in German. "We're American military. We're getting you out." Silence. Third car. "Is anyone alive?" More silence. Fourth car. He was about to move on when he heard it. A voice. Weak. Female. "Ja, yes. We are, alive." Liesel, using last strength to call out in English. 47. 47 women. Many dead. We need Wasser. Water. Please." Brennan's composure cracked for just a moment. He closed his eyes, breathed. When he opened them, his face was set. "We're getting you out. Hold on." He turned to Dalton. "Get every man here. Bring water, medical supplies. Call for ambulances. Multiple ambulances." 2 hours later. Bolt cutters arrived. Nathaniel worked the padlock while Brennan prepared for what they'd find. The lock broke. Nathaniel pulled the handle. Door slid open. Light flooded in. Captain Elliot Brennan, veteran of 2 years of war, stood frozen. 47 women, some standing, swaying like ghosts, some slumped against walls, some in corners, impossible to tell if alive or dead. Skeletal bodies, arms like sticks, faces all skull and sunken eyes, clothing hanging off frames that had lost everything human. The smell hit him. Death and waste and the sweetness of starvation. But what broke him, what would wake him at night for 40 years, was their eyes. Still alive, still conscious, still aware. They looked at him with eyes of people who'd given up hope so long ago that rescue felt like hallucination. Brennan stepped forward. Medical training kicked in, pushing shock aside. But where do you start when everyone is dying? He moved to Liesel. "I'm a doctor. I'm going to help you." Her mouth moved, barely a whisper. "Too late." "No, not too late. We're here now." He checked her pulse. Rapid, thready, skin cold, clammy, severe malnutrition and dehydration. He pulled out his penlight, checked her eyes. Pupils reactive but sluggish. "Water," she rasped. "Not yet. If you drink too fast, it could kill you." He pulled out IV kit. "I'm giving you fluids slowly. Your body needs to adjust." He moved through the car, woman after woman, each worse than the last. Then he saw her. Katerina, sitting against wall, holding a glass jar, eyes open, staring at nothing. For a moment, Brennan thought she was dead. Then her eyes moved, found his face. 19 years old, maybe 85 pounds now. Critical, life-threatening, the point where most didn't survive even with intervention. Brennan knelt beside her. "What's your name?" She didn't respond, just kept staring. He checked vitals, pulse dangerously slow,
breathing shallow, skin temperature dropping, her body entering shock. "Nathaniel, IV set up here, saline, glucose, blankets." They worked together. Brennan found a vein, barely visible, and inserted the needle. Saline and glucose. Not much. Too much would overload her system. Katerina's eyes followed the IV bag, watched fluid drip, life, entering her body one drop at a time. Brennan wrapped her in thermal blanket. "You're safe now." Katerina's lips moved. He leaned closer. "Eva," she whispered. Her name, Eva. She sang. Remember, she sang. Brennan looked around, saw bodies in the corner. So many bodies. One was a girl, maybe 16, dead, maybe 12 hours. "I'll remember," he said quietly. "We'll remember all of them." Katerina's hand moved, reached for his. He took it, bone wrapped in skin, no strength left, and held it while the IV dripped. Dalton appeared at the door, looked inside. His face went grey. "How many?" 47 alive, 26 dead.
Haven't opened the other 3 yet.
Dear God. Tell command we need hospital transport for approximately 200 patients. Critical condition, severe starvation, multiple fatalities. Brennan stayed with Katerina while the IV dripped, watched her breathe, counted each breath like a miracle. Nathaniel moved through the car with water, tiny sips. Their bodies couldn't handle more. One woman gulped it down, choked, vomited. Nathaniel held her until spasms stopped, then gave more, slower, 1 teaspoon at a time. Outside, Nathaniel stood by the door, staring at his hands. They were shaking. He thought about the moment he'd almost walked away, when Davies said it wasn't their problem. He thought about how close he'd come to being the man who kept walking. 47 women. 47 lives hanging by a thread. For the rest of his life, Nathaniel would wonder, how many other trains were sitting on sidings right now, full of people the world had decided to forget. Inside, Katerina held the glass jar against her chest. The IV dripped. Dr. Margareta had started speaking again, quietly helping Brennan, her training overriding despair. Liesel sat by her carved hole, looking at American soldiers working in twilight, and whispered something that might have been prayer or curse. "You came. You finally came." Day 8 ended. Doors were open. But the hardest part, where bodies broken beyond repair had to decide if they still had will to fight, was just beginning. Day 9, April 26th, 0600. Captain Brennan hadn't slept. He stood in the converted barn, looking at his chart. Boxcar number 4, final assessment. Total found, 73 women. Alive when discovered, 47. Dead on arrival, 26. Current, 6 hours post-rescue, 45 alive, 2 deceased. Average statistics. Weight, 82 to 96 pounds. Average BMI, 13, 9 times. Weight loss, 28 to 35 pounds over 8 days times. Caloric intake, less than 200 calories per day. Medical conditions, times. Severe dehydration, 100% times. Acute malnutrition, 100% times. Cardiac arrhythmia, 68% times. Infection, 43%. The numbers told a story. These women had been systematically starved, not quickly, slowly. 8 days watching their bodies consume themselves. The problem was simple and terrible. If you fed starving people too quickly, you killed them. Refeeding syndrome. When a body starves, it adapts. Metabolism slows, electrolytes shift. Then suddenly, you introduce food and the body goes into shock. Phosphate crashes, potassium drops, the heart can't handle it. Patients die within hours. Brennan had seen it, made mistakes in early days, given too much too fast, watched patients die after rescue. He wouldn't make that mistake again. Brennan Protocol. Day 1 to 2. IV fluids only. Day 3. Clear broth, 200 milliliters every 4 hours.
Day 4 to 5, 300 milliliters every 3 hours, thin porridge. Day 6 to 7, 1,200 calories daily. Target, 400 to 500 calorie increase per week until 2,000 calories per day. Every patient weighed daily. Vitals every 4 hours. Any cardiac distress meant immediate intervention. It was methodical, scientific, the approach that saved lives by refusing emotion. But standing in that barn at dawn, looking at 45 skeletal women on cots, Brennan felt weight of every decision. One mistake, and they'd die anyway. Nathaniel entered, carrying medical supplies, face haggard. He'd been up all night too. "Sir, ambulances are here. 12 patients to Heidelberg. 4-hour drive. You need to decide who goes first." Triage again. Always triage. Brennan scanned the room. The 8 most critical, cardiac arrhythmia or organ failure. He moved through cots, marking charts. This one. That one. He stopped at Katerina's cot. She was awake, eyes open, staring at ceiling. 3rd bag of saline and glucose. Vitals stabilized somewhat. Heart rate still slow but no longer dangerous. 85 pounds. BMI 13.6. Critical, but not most critical. She'd stay. Hospital beds for those more likely to die in 12 hours. "Katerina," he said softly. Her eyes moved to his face. Recognition. Good. "I'm going to give you something to drink soon. Just broth. Your body needs to adjust slowly. Understand?" Tiny nod. "What year is it?" Her lips moved. 1945. "What month?" Pause. Confusion flickered. "April?" "That's right. You're doing well." But as he moved on, Brennan noted, cognitive function impaired, monitor for neurological damage. Starvation didn't just destroy the body. It ate the brain. Memory, reasoning, personality, all could be damaged permanently. Some of these women might never fully recover. Day 10, April 27th, 1430. The first death came 28 hours after rescue. Not in the boxcar, after they'd been saved, after IVs were running and hope had been reintroduced. Her name was Johanna Richter, 43, mother of 2. Children died in bombing 1943. She'd worked as a clerk, filing papers, nothing criminal but enough to make her a target. Brennan had flagged her high risk, unstable heart. But there were 9 women with unstable hearts and only 8 ambulance slots. She'd been number 9. At 14:27, her heart stopped. Just stopped. No warning. Nathaniel was with her. He called for Brennan, started compressions. Brennan came running. They worked 18 minutes. Compressions, adrenaline, artificial respiration. Nothing. At 14:45, Brennan called time of death. He stood there, hands bloody, breathing hard, and felt familiar weight of failure. 45 had become 44. That night, 3 more died, all from refeeding syndrome. Bodies pushed past recovery couldn't handle metabolic stress. Potassium crashed, hearts gave out. Brennan documented everything: time of death, probable cause, where protocol failed. By morning, 44 had become 41. Nathaniel found him at 4 o'clock, sitting outside, head in hands. "Sir, you should rest." "I killed them." "Sir, you saved." "I killed them. Gave fluids too fast. Wrong electrolyte ratio. My calculations were off." Brennan's voice was hollow. "They survived 8 days in hell, and I killed them in 8 hours." Nathaniel sat beside him. "Sir, they were dying anyway. You gave them a chance. Some are going to make it because of you." "Some. Not all." "No, not all." Nathaniel paused. "But 41 is better than 0. Brennan looked at the young corporal, saw clarity, the ability to see the math without being destroyed by it. Katerina Vogel, the girl with the jar. Is she stable, unconscious mostly, but vitals holding? Brennan nodded, stood, went back inside. "Because that's what you did." Document failures, learn from deaths, keep trying to save the ones left. Week 2, May 3. Katerina woke to sunlight. Real sunlight, not thin strips through boxcar gaps. Full, warm, golden light through a window. She was in a bed. Clean sheets, pillow. The smell was antiseptic, hospital, not death. She tried to sit. Her body didn't cooperate. Muscles that used to lift sheet metal couldn't lift her own weight. A face appeared. Female, older, kind eyes. Easy. Don't try to move too fast. English. But Katerina's brain translated. Where? Her voice still a rasp. Medical facility. Americans brought you. You're safe. Safe. The word felt foreign. The nurse helped her sit slightly. I'm going to give you broth. Sip slowly. Can you do that? Katerina nodded. The broth tasted like nothing and everything, like life, like hope. She drank 3 spoonfuls and felt nauseous. That's normal, the nurse said. Your stomach has shrunk. We're building you back slowly. How long? 6 days here, unconscious most of that time. Your body needed rest.
6 days, plus 8 in boxcar.
14 days since Wiesbaden. 14 days since she'd been a factory worker with dreams. Now she was, what? A survivor? A woman who weighed 87 pounds? The others? Katerina asked. The nurse's expression changed, gentle, sad. 39 are still alive, some recovering well, others... Pause. We lost 8 in the first 3 days after rescue. 8. Katerina felt the number like a blow. Eva, she whispered, knowing the answer. I'm sorry, dear. She passed before rescue. You were holding her. Katerina closed her eyes, saw Eva's face, heard her singing. There's a doctor who wants to speak with you, Captain Brennan. Are you strong enough? Katerina nodded. 10 minutes later, Brennan appeared, exhausted, grey stubble, dark circles, the tiredness of weeks of impossible decisions. He sat beside her bed, pulled out a chart. Katerina Vogel, 19. Current weight, 91 pounds. Up 4 pounds from when we found you. BMI now 14.6. Still critical, but improving. He spoke like a doctor, clinical, but his eyes were human. You're going to survive, but it'll take time, months. Your body needs to relearn how to process food. We'll increase calories gradually. Next week, 1,500 per day. Month 2, 1,800. We'll monitor everything. Why? Katerina asked. Why what? Why did you save us? We're German. Enemy. Brennan was quiet. Then, Geneva Convention, 1929. Article 7 says all prisoners shall be treated humanely, without distinction. Article 12 says medical care provided to all equally. He paused. But honestly, I didn't save you because of the convention. I saved you because when Corporal Greaves opened that door, I saw 47 human beings dying. And I'm a doctor. Saving lives isn't about nationality. It's what I do. He handed her the glass jar. The nurse said you wouldn't let go of this. Even unconscious. I'm putting vitamins in it. 1 pill per day. Take with meals. Katerina looked at the jar. It held 12 pills now. Tiny tablets that looked like miracles. Captain Brennan? Voice barely audible. Thank you. He shook his head. Don't thank me yet. Long road ahead. But, he almost smiled. You're stubborn enough to walk it. Week 4, May 17. The war ended. Germany surrendered. VE Day celebrations across Europe. American soldiers danced. Letters went home promising boys coming back. In the medical facility, 39 women marked the occasion in silence. They'd survived. But survival came with a price. Katerina could walk now, slowly, carefully. Weight up to 94 pounds. BMI 15.1. Safe. Barely. Dr. Margaret had regained speech, though she rarely used it. She spent days helping medical staff, her 30 years of experience invaluable. But at night, she sat alone, staring at nothing. Some wounds couldn't be measured. Liesel had lost 3 fingers on her right hand. Infection from digging too severe. Amputation necessary. She'd taken the news without emotion, as if losing parts of herself was just another cost. On May 17th, Brennan gathered survivors in the common room, 39 women in various stages of recovery. "The war is over," he said in German. "You're no longer prisoners. You're free to go home." Home. The word hung like smoke. Most didn't have homes, houses bombed, families dead, cities destroyed. Germany was rubble and ash. "Where do we go?" someone asked. Brennan had no answer. 6 weeks post-rescue. June 1. Katerina stood before a mirror for the first time in 2 months. 98 pounds. BMI 15.8. But everything was different. Hair had fallen out during starvation, growing back now, thin and patchy. Face still gaunt, cheekbones sharp. Eyes too large for her skull. She looked like a ghost, like someone who'd died and come back wrong. But she was alive. That afternoon, Nathaniel came to visit. He'd been reassigned, but made time to check on the women, especially Katerina. "I brought you something," he said, holding out a photograph. It showed the rescue. Nathaniel carrying a woman, skeletal, barely conscious. Other soldiers helping others. Boxcar door open, light flooding in. Katerina stared. "Who?" "That's you. Another guy took it. I thought, you should have it. Proof you made it out." Katerina took the photo with shaking hands. Saw herself as others had seen her. 19 years old, 85 pounds. A body more corpse than human. But also Nathaniel's face. Determined, exhausted, carrying her towards safety because he'd chosen to stop when the world kept walking. "Thank you," she whispered, "for opening the door." Nathaniel looked uncomfortable. "I just heard something. Couldn't ignore it." "Most people did." "I know." His voice quiet. "I almost did too." Silence. 2 people who'd been on opposite sides of a locked door, trying to understand what it meant that one had opened it. "What will you do?" Nathaniel asked. "After you recover?" Katerina thought. Teaching literature seemed like a dream from another life. The girl who'd wanted to discuss Goethe had died in that boxcar. But something else survived. "I'll tell the story," she said, "so people remember. So the 29 who died aren't forgotten." Nathaniel nodded. "I'll remember too, I promise." Epilogue. The years after. The medical report Captain Brennan compiled became the Brennan Protocol. 147 pages, documentation of treating 47 starvation survivors. Metabolic response, cardiac monitoring, nutritional recovery, complications, failures, successes, dry, clinical, written in medical language, not emotion. But embedded in those pages was knowledge that would save lives for decades. Taught at West Point starting 1947, used in Korea 1951. When WHO developed famine relief standards in 1961, they built on Brennan's research. The protocol showed up in Bangladesh 1971, Ethiopia 1984, Bosnia 1992, Somalia 1993. Anywhere humans starved, Brennan's mathematics helped bring them back. According to U.S. Army Medical Corps Historical Archives, Brennan's documentation became the most comprehensive clinical study of refeeding syndrome in war conditions ever compiled. The man himself never spoke of it. Elliot Brennan returned to Baltimore in 1946, resumed private practice, treated wealthy patients, sent Christmas cards. He died in 1978 at 75. Heart attack. Quick. Painless. His obituary mentioned military service, but not the women, not the boxcar, not the protocol bearing his name. Some legacies are too quiet for headlines. Dr. Margarita Klein lived to 88. In 1972, she wrote to Katerina, "You asked why I stopped talking in the boxcar. I stopped because I realized all my medical knowledge couldn't save us from people who'd decided we weren't worth saving. But then the Americans came. Captain Brennan treated us like we mattered. He reminded me why I became a nurse, not to serve a regime, to serve humanity. She died in 1978, same year as Brennan, different country. Neither knew of the other's passing. Both were buried with knowledge they'd done the thing that mattered most. They'd chosen to see human beings when the world saw problems.
Corporal Nathaniel Greaves lived to 96, returned to Boston, married, 3 children, 7 grandchildren, 12 great-grandchildren. Worked as postal carrier 40 years, lived quiet, unremarkable life. Never told his children about the boxcar, but he kept the photograph, the one showing him carrying Katerina, kept it in a drawer, wrapped in cloth, like a talisman against forgetting. In 2015, his granddaughter found it while helping him move. "Grandpa, what's this?" Nathaniel, 93, looked at it a long time. "I opened a door once," he said finally. "I wish I'd opened it sooner." That was all he'd say. He died 3 years later, peacefully, surrounded by family. At his funeral, the granddaughter displayed the photograph. Only Nathaniel knew the truth. It was the moment he'd learned the most important lesson of his life, that stopping, really seeing, required more courage than any battle. Liesl Hoffman became a human rights advocate. 50 years speaking at schools, conferences, survivor groups. Always holding up her hand with 3 missing fingers. "This is what silence costs," she'd say. "I lost these digging through wood, trying to be heard. For days the world walked past. They heard us, they saw us, they chose not to stop." The question isn't whether you hear suffering. The question is, will you stop? She died in 2005 at 83. Her last speech 3 months before to high school students in Frankfurt. "How many boxcars are sitting on sidings right now?" she asked. "How many voices are crying out that you're choosing not to hear?" No one had an answer. That was her point. Katharina Vogel lived until 2003. She did become a teacher. Not literature, she could never return to Goethe. Instead, she taught history, 20th century European, specializing in Third Reich collapse and post-war period. Married once, no children. Husband died 1989. After that, she lived alone in Munich, surrounded by books and memories. She kept the glass jar 58 years, long after vitamins were gone, long after it served any purpose. She kept it on her desk where she could see it every day. In 1998, a historian came to interview her. "Why do you still have that jar?" Katerina, 72, picked it up, turned it in light. "Because Nathaniel Greaves put vitamins in it. Captain Brennan told me to take them with meals. They gave me this jar when I couldn't feed myself, couldn't trust tomorrow would come. It was a promise. You will have tomorrows. You will need this jar." She paused. "I kept it because it reminds me I had 58 years I wasn't supposed to have." 58 years because someone stopped. In 2000, she donated the jar to Munich Historical Museum. They display it now with a placard. Glass jar, circa 1945, belonged to Katharina Vogel, survivor of transport train abandonment, April 1945. Used by American medical personnel to administer vitamins during recovery from acute starvation. Donated 2000. The placard doesn't mention what's written on the bottom in faded pencil. April 26, 1945. Nathaniel Greaves. Thank you for stopping. Katerina gave her last interview in 2002, 1 year before her death. The interviewer asked, "Why does this story matter? It's been almost 60 years. Katerina, 76, looked directly at the camera. Because the lesson isn't about heroes or villains. It's simpler and more terrifying. It's about how easy it is to let a train car full of people become a footnote. How thin the line is between being seen and being erased. How much courage it takes to open a door when the world has decided to walk past." She leaned forward. People ask, "How did you survive?" I tell them, "I didn't survive because I was strong. I survived because someone, Nathaniel Greaves, Captain Brennan, even Frau Müller, who brought bread, chose to stop when the world kept walking." The question isn't,
Will someone save me? The question is, when I hear the cry, will I stop? She paused. Her eyes, still sharp, looked into the camera. And how many trains are sitting on sidings right now, full of people the world has decided to forget? How many voices crying out that we're choosing not to hear? Because the distance between us and that boxcar, between being the helper and being the one who walks past, is much smaller than we want to believe. Much smaller. The interview ended. Katharina Vogel died 7 months later. Natural causes. Peacefully. She was buried in Munich, holding a photograph, the one Nathaniel had given her 58 years earlier. Young soldier carrying dying girl toward light. On the back, in her handwriting, the man who saw us, the man who stopped. According to Bundesarchiv Berlin, Hauptmann Heinrich Weber, the officer who ordered the train abandoned, committed suicide on April 27, 1945. He left a note. One sentence. I only followed orders. History will judge. History did judge, but not the way he thought. History remembered the 39 women who survived, the protocol that saved thousands more, the American corporal who heard voices and stopped. Weber's name is a footnote. The women he tried to erase became testimony. That's the thing about trying to make people disappear. Sometimes they survive, and when they do, their stories echo louder than your silence.